Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be reacting to basic workers' rights. British versus American. As someone presently working in the United Kingdom, England to be specific, I do think the only bad thing about working here is tax. The tax is just crazy. But about protecting workers' rights and being treated fairly at work, I think it's up there. Yeah, it's up there. The bonuses, the amount of holidays you get sometimes, the access to healthcare you get if you're working in certain sectors. It's really good. Obviously, in some workplaces you find some toxic people. Anyway, let us get right into this video.
Growing up in the States, I had to show up to work regardless of how sick I was. I mean, unless I was absolutely dying, and even then I had to call around to find replacements, which is why I'm not really surprised about this recent CNN report saying many Americans show up to work very sick regardless of how far along Omicron is now spreading. Doesn't surprise me in the slightest. If you're from any other country and you're like, why the heck are Americans like that? Strap yourselves right in. In today's video, we're going to be talking a little bit about the differences between US and UK culture in regards to leaving work and work benefits. And if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Evan Ediger, and this is kind of what I do. I'm British American. I like making videos about these interesting differences. And, well, recently, last week, I made a video about how I got my first job in the UK, and a lot of you wanted to know more about those interesting differences between working for a US company in the US versus a UK company in the UK. And also a little bit of intermingling. So that's where this video came from. Now, I wasn't joking in the intro. No matter how sick I was, when I was working at a Pizza Hut, a food service restaurant, I was expected to show up to work or find a replacement, which is something that most people in the UK, when I told them this, said, well, isn't that what the hiring manager is supposed to do?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense. He should be the one kind of balancing. Why is it down to the individual employee? Well, it's because when you're sick in the US, that is actually your fault. You're guilty of this, and you need to pay the company back by doing another job and finding someone else to replace. That's just the culture. Whereas because I was brought up like this, my first couple jobs in the UK, I showed up incredibly ill during days in which I was sick and was told to go home.
Yes, you shouldn't be there. If you're working at a Pizza Hut, for example, you're gonna spread your sickness to other people. It's food you're dealing with. That's number one. Number two, how can you even work well if you're not feeling okay? What do they want you to die on the job before they know? Oh, okay, he can't work anymore. What, that's crazy.
I'm coughing all over the place, but I got work to do, right? No, I was sent home and I could get healthy. What? But one of the most interesting aspects of this whole thing was that I was paid for when I was sick.
Yeah.
Which was the first time I'd ever experienced that. And most Americans will tend to agree. What happens is when you are ill and you have to ask the boss for the day off because you were sick, a lot of times that comes out of holiday pay. Holiday. You see, most UK companies have something in place for this, in the inevitable likelihood that an employee is sick. If you do get sick for longer than 3 days, the government actually can step in and ensure you get a little bit under £100 per week, plus whatever your employer agrees to give you until you get better, which is a nice little thing to fall upon. Now, in the sad circumstance you are sick for a very long time, you can go to get a doctor's note, but as we have nationalized healthcare, that doesn't cost anything. On the other hand, in the US, the land of the free, there is no federally mandated sick pay. So regardless of if you're sick for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, you are unpaid for the most part, which isn't really the best situation. And especially if you're someone that is living paycheck to paycheck, which as of March 2022 is 64% of Americans, nearly 2 out of every 3 Americans is living paycheck to paycheck. I don't really think you can blame someone for going to work when they're ill if financially they're just playing the cards that they've been dealt as best as they can.
Yeah,
also, given the fact that a lot of American employers demand a doctor's note if you are ill for more than 1 or 2 days, which is then an entire extra day you need to take off to go to your doctor. And if you don't have great insurance, for instance, when I was working at different retail restaurants and things, well, That's $75 a session. So now I've lost essentially a day or two's wages, plus I'm freaking ill still, and I have to heal. It's just not a good situation.
Oh, that's
And
crazy.
This issue is, it's really not political in the slightest. In fact, 94% of self-identified liberals and 81% of self-identified conservatives agree that paid sick days should be a basic human worker right. But then, if such a huge grouping of these two sides that usually war all the time finally agree on it, why do we not have any change? Well, there's an even bigger percentage of corporations and employers that really don't give a about what you think, and well, they have a lot of money and they'd like to keep it that way. And so they have successfully lobbied to ensure that no change has happened. Does that sound familiar to any other part of the US law? Almost all of it, actually. Yes, it's sad. And sadly, as is the case in most of these things, the people with the largest amount of money have the largest voice in US politics, and so can shout down the massive majority of people who just want this basic right, so that they can have more money, which is, of course, the American dream. Now, given that this is the sad state of affairs, most Americans have found a loophole on how to have paid sick leave, and sadly, you probably know where this is going. Well, it comes out of their holiday pay. One of the reasons why Americans don't travel or go on holiday as much as anyone else in Western civilization, well, they use them for sick days. Now, most people realize that Americans don't travel as much as many of their European counterparts, and a lot of Americans will say, well, it's because the country is so big and there's not many places to visit outside of, like...
I think that's a valid point, though. The country is so big. I can't imagine myself, because isn't it almost as big as Europe, excluding Russia? So, yeah, that is actually a valid point.
Like Mexico and Canada, but usually as soon as somebody makes this argument, Australia enters the chat. But it has more to do with the fact that there are no federal protections for holiday pay in the States at all. I don't know how many times I've told this story on this channel, but I'll tell it again. I worked 5 years at a Pizza Hut working 30 hours a week, and I earned 0 days paid holiday, whereas I worked under 20 hours in London.
Yeah, you get
2 days a month.
Yeah.
I was blown away with how I was able to earn anything, considering that I'd worked 5 years and hadn't even gotten a single raise from my $2.13 an hour they were paying me.
Wow.
Somehow, legally, they didn't have to. How was that legal, though? Well, federally, there aren't any laws about holiday pay. The government thought it'd be better to just leave that up to the employers. And as we all know, employers always have the best intentions. They don't. Now, my state decided to have it so that once you work over a certain amount of time, in my case 30 hours, you are entitled to some paid holiday. However, they made it a step function, meaning you have to cross over that threshold of 30. There isn't a gradual increase like, say, the way we pay taxes. And so that's just going to allow capitalistic companies to be capitalistic companies, to ensure I never was allowed to work over 33 hours a week, just so they could make sure I averaged out under that, and they would never ever have to pay me a single day of paid holiday. That's just what companies are going to do if you let them do that. That's the point of government, to step in and give people the basic rights that they are entitled.
That's crazy.
Google in the UK and got 30 days of paid holiday, moved to the US, and lost half of them. Because, well, 15 days, that's quite a lot in the US. Well, in the UK, we are mandated to have at least 28 days of paid holiday.
Yeah.
That's 5.6 weeks of paid holiday, including bank holidays. If an employer wants to, they can give you more than that or less, but that's just how it is. Though, to be fair, the US Department of Labor has said that 76% of private sector employees got paid holiday, and the average of that was 10. Well, as there's no federal law, employers don't have to, and so they won't unless they're forced to, which is why it's good that in certain states, they actually have. In states like Vermont, for every 52 hours you work, you get 1 hour of paid holiday. And for those of you that enjoy math, that means that working 40 hours a week in the state of Vermont, every single week, at the end of the year, you earn 5 days of paid holiday. 40 hours. That's horrible. And of those 5 days, if we...
5 days of paid holiday. For working 40 hours for 52, that is criminal, man. That is criminal. That is criminal. You even get more for that in Nigeria. That is criminal. That is bad. When I came into the UK as a student and I worked part-time, I worked only 20 hours a week for 4 weeks. The next week, after I left the place, I received a payment. I received a paycheck and I was like, I didn't work. And then I saw on there, holiday pay. The next week, I received another payment, holiday pay. I'm like, I only worked for 4 weeks. So basically, I think I got 2 days after 2 weeks of work. Then I got 4 days for 4 weeks which is incredible. And at that time, I was studying for my exams, and the money just went a long way helping me to prepare more, and gave me this peace of mind. And that was I was so happy. I was so happy, and I think that should be basic rights, man. That's crazy.
Know that the average American is sick 3.9 days of the year, and they don't get paid sick days. Well, of those 5 days in Vermont, you've got one left. If you've got an average amount of sickness, congratulations. Where are you gonna go? Dorney Park? It's a bit far. And all of these things together really show how the culture is in terms of when you ask your boss for a day off in the US and they act as if, even though you're fully entitled to it, you are hurting them and you are doing them a disservice to take the holiday that you're legally allowed to have in certain states. It's just such a weird contrast to countries like Germany, in which their employers force them to go on holiday because they understand that a well-rested employee is going to be a better one, make better decisions, and be happier in general. I mean, the UK isn't the greatest thing, but I'm thankful that we do have those 28 days of paid holidays so that people can take off, people can enjoy their lives and not just work every single day of their lives. Now, as a quick asterisk here, there are some companies in the US and the UK that both employ this new magical thing called unlimited time off. Unlimited paid holiday. It sounds like a dream. I was offered a job like this once, and that was the first thing I had a question about. I went, how does that work? Unlimited time off? I can just take off? And he was like, yeah, you have unlimited as opposed to like 28 days or 29. You have unlimited. So I said, so
what's the catch?
Gonna get hired and then just start going on holiday. And he went, well, you do have to make sure that you work enough, like you feel like you've gotten enough done. And I was like, well, that's not unlimited then, now is it? Now, truth be told, I did go on holiday way more than any other employee, but I was a rare case. In fact, the whole concept of unlimited paid holiday, it is found, means that people take off less because they don't realize how much they have. If you have 28 days and you've spent 14, by the end of the year, sometimes you want to just make sure you spend those final days.
Yeah, true.
If it's unlimited, you don't actually have an end limit, and so most people will spend less. So there it is. Companies giving you something that looks like it's beautiful. It is a Trojan horse. It's actually so you take off less. Classic capitalism. Now, obviously, sometimes people die. Wow, we're getting real dark. Bereavement leave is something that you would really expect at the end of the day for both countries to have, but they don't. The UK does have a law, however, if you do lose a dependent, which I'm thankful does include things like housemate, which the US's does not, but if you do lose a dependent in the UK, the law states you're to be given a reasonable amount of time off to grieve. Reasonable. That's the law. You must be reasonable. And it's odd that this type of thing just works in the UK. In the law, it says, be reasonable. In the US, that's not, I don't think that would ever work.
Reasonable.
I don't really feel protected by a clause saying it has to be reasonable. In the UK, they do kind of follow through with that most of the time. In the US, though, the only thing we really have is the Family and Medical Leave Act, which allows for 12 weeks of leave-protected unpaid leave, which is good. You can come back to your job at the end of it, and ta-da, you've still got it. However, there's so many asterisks revolving around this FMLA, or My Life America Act, there's a big chance it doesn't even apply to you to get this unpaid leave, and you're going to have to work regardless of what you're going through. Do you work for a company with fewer than 50 people? Well, congratulations. You do not qualify.
Oh my God.
Through your grief.
That's not your fault.
Wait to pass away until after you got your new job. You're also not entitled to any leave-protected unpaid leave. Nope, you've got to come to work grieving because you have to stay at the same company for at least a year before that can happen, which is a reason why I'm assuming most people are afraid to leave jobs, because that transitionary period, there are so many benefits the government is no longer giving you. So if you work for a company with fewer than 50 people, or you've recently switched jobs, the FMLA just does not apply to you.
That is crazy.
In fact, on the official website for the FMLA, it states, if you know ahead of time that you'll be taking leave for a new child or a planned medical treatment for yourself or a family member, you are required to give your employer 30 days advance notice. In the case of planned medical treatment, you must try to schedule the medical treatment when it will not unduly disrupt your employer's business. So, next time you plan on being sick or plan on having someone die or birthed or anything else, make sure it does not inconvenience your employer. That is in the US law. And so
that is just so capitalist. All they care about is the business, the business, the people employing you, the people paying you. They really don't care about you that you're working. Like, anything you do, you must make sure it doesn't disrupt your employer. You must make sure business keeps going. If not, you're evil. Jesus.
Difference here being that in the UK, employers are asked to give a reasonable time off to their employees when they're going through grief, and in the US, employees are asked to give their employer reasonable time off when the employee is going through grief. It's just a country for the haves, not the have-nots. The employees have so little protection, you have to ask for permission for one of your relatives to die. What the And the last of the big leaves we're going to be talking about today, the big one, the elephant in the room. No offense to your mother, but maternity leave and paternity leave. What was that said? We've all seen the map before. The fact that the US has 0 days of paid maternity leave is still disgusting. How it's not protected at all is disgusting. In the UK, employees can take up to 50.
Are you serious?
How it's not protected.
The US has 0 days of maternity leave. Of paid maternity leave. What the hell? And look at Russia. Look at Russia is just there like, come on, go on for more than 52 weeks. You're alright. And then Canada, Australia, 21 to 51 weeks. I think the UK is also the same as Canada. That is crazy. Nigeria, less than 14 weeks. That is poor, man. You guys need to do better. None is crazy. Jesus Christ.
In the UK, employees can take up to 52 weeks of maternity leave, and their jobs are protected for when they come back. And of those 52 weeks, the first 6 are paid at 90% of their salary. The next 33 are paid at 90% or £156.66, whichever is smaller. And then the next weeks are actually unpaid. But of that period, you still have your job protected, you still have some money coming in, and you can take care of your child during the moments in which it needs you most. Now, when it comes to paternity leave, the UK definitely falls flat here, only providing fathers with 1 to 2 weeks of paid paternity leave, and of that, it's that £156.66.
I mean, to be fair, it's the women that need it anyway, because a man should still be able to go to work and take care of his family even during that time. Although the woman, the mother will need the man during that time. So, I don't know. It's alright. I don't think it should be more than 2 weeks.
Whichever is smaller. But it is 2 weeks that you're allowed to take off. And you also get 2 prenatal appointments before the birth of your child. So if you need to take off to check on how the baby's doing in the mama's belly, you can do that. Now, when it comes to the US, do you remember that Family and Medical Leave Act we were talking about earlier? That's the only thing the US has in place for expectant mothers. Unpaid leave. This means as soon as employees are finished going into labor, they need to go back into the labor force because there's no other way of affording to take care of that child. There's nothing there to protect them. And with just how expensive US hospital bills can be when it comes to having a child there, it's no surprise that reports are coming out of mothers going back to work within a couple days after just having a child in America.
That's true.
Sick pay, holiday pay, bereavement pay, and maternity leave are basic workers' rights that people in the UK and around the world get to enjoy, whereas people in the US just don't. The only way an American worker can hope to get any of these basic workers' rights is if by chance their employer just happens to, out of the goodness of their heart, provide it, which doesn't happen very likely, which is why it's good to see that there's a large resurgence in the States of workers' unions coming back into fashion. Starbucks, Amazon, Apple, everyone is fed up with the fact that they're not given the rights, the government isn't protecting them, and so people are demanding they protect themselves, forming unions and demanding the rights they deserve. How long did we have to put up with people clapping their hands for essential workers? And now that COVID is, for the most part, cut and dry, we're seeing people go, oh, well, you're not that essential, no pay raise for you. What do you want to get paid more than $15 to flip a burger? Well, considering the cost of living has gone up, yes.
Of course.
They do. It is really horrible that at the end of the day in the US, we have to fight for those basic freedoms at the bottom. But that's the case when people with a lot of money don't want things to change, and I don't think they do. Genuine question. Do you think within our lifetime you will see the US government step in and provide these basic rights that every other country's citizens have had for many years?
I mean, maybe now that Trump is president, how this is 2 years ago, maybe now that Trump is president, some of these things could change.
I'd like to be helpful and say yes, but the way that most American politics is run by money, it's looking very doubtful. But regardless of your stance on these different types of leave me a comment. Tell me what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. Or if you'd like, you can watch another research video over here on my channel. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a nice day. I am sweaty. I'll see you next time.
Alright, yeah, that was a very nice video. Big up Evan Edinger. Yeah, that was a very good video. I enjoyed it, and I think it's just outrageous how expensive it is to give birth in the United States, and you really get nothing. You don't get paid for your leave. That is crazy. That is just stupid. That is wicked. I think something should be done about that, man. Think that something should be, and people should take this more seriously. Like, go out, travel, and see what you're missing in the United States. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Until we see you next time. Peace out.